So it was an incredible demonstration that something could do for me what I could not do for myself. Now, basically, since then, the program was really an undoing of stuff that isn't me, yeah? So that what I am is left behind, yeah? That's all it is. And I don't believe in you're gonna have a spiritual awakening. You are awake already. Yeah, you're gonna awake from that which needs a spiritual awakening. You're gonna wake up from that, yeah? You're gonna wake up from what you're not, yeah? Instead of trying to wake up to what you are, you wake up from what you're not, yes? And then that's sort of like the horse in front of the cart, and now your logic has been rearranged. You're not wasting any time looking for what can't be found. And in my experience, my hit on it, and I'll just give you the sentence in the big book that was the most pivotal sentence for me, just because I was in a process of leading people and doing a fourth step for years. Yeah, I was running a fourth step workshop at the dry dock for like 17 years or whatever, I don't know how long. And I was, obviously it all comes from How It Works, the chapter. And there was a very important sentence that I thought I understood, which I did, but not like what was going to happen. And it's being convinced, which is a statement the big book uses quite a lot, which means it's almost like a requirement. It tells you all this stuff about alcoholism, and then it says, hopefully being convinced now, what's going to happen is this. So being convinced, which means a present tense state, you're being convinced. Yeah, it wasn't I was convinced, because if you were convinced, it really implies that you're not convinced. And if you're hoping you will be convinced, it's still implying you're not convinced. So this is being convinced now, not yesterday or tomorrow, but now. So being convinced of what? Yeah, self, that self. I'm not talking about ego either. I'm talking about the feeling of ownership, of the having of an ego and a losing of an ego. What's that? See, people assume that's them, but I don't see it as them. I see it as a mental construct that's brought about by an incessant claiming of whatever it comes in contact with. So yeah, and to me, ego is just an objectification of the mental state, by the mental state. It's like it's looking in a mirror and then it draws itself, and there goes, ego. Therefore, it's got an immunity to any investigation, because there it is, the culprit, ego. Yeah. No. If you follow ego, the puppet, it's you, yeah. And obviously, therefore, it's not, because what you are is not a mental construct. All right, so it says being convinced, yes, that's the requirement in a sense, that self manifested in various ways. Page 64, very important, right before you go into the inventory process. That self manifested in various ways is what has defeated us. Yeah, so if you follow the sentence, there's something called self, and then there's us. Yeah, it doesn't say being convinced that Paul, Mary, Jim, Sue, and every other alcoholic's first name manifested in various ways and defeated Jim, Mary, Paul, and Sue. It says self and us. We're us, much different than this self. Yeah. So this is the key. If you see it, because what happened with me, I don't know, the head just ripened enough, whatever, I don't even know what happened. But I saw this sentence differently, and I saw self as a foreign installment, or I call it a parasitical movement. Now people say, there is no mental, it's just an image, it's just trying to capture an activity, which I see as parasitical in nature, yeah? So, all right, so being convinced that self, this parasitical movement, this freaking whatever, manifested in a lot of ways, has defeated us. Yeah? We're going to look at its self's manifestations, and the first one is resentment. Yeah, and yet in our own community, most people call resentments their resentments. So To me, it's sort of like if Stanley is expressing through you and manifesting through you, and every time a manifestation of Stanley comes through, you call it yours, you're in the act of being identified as Stanley. Yes? So that's the thing. So I really believe the activity of the disease of alcoholism, all that does is amplify the original dis-ease, which is the identification as being a someone, a thing. Yes? And therefore, how are you going to be spiritual and a thing at the same time? You're going to try to become spiritual as a thing. Good luck. So, being convinced, I don't know, I may be insane, but it seems like if I read it, this is how it goes. Being convinced, present tense state. Hey, how was I convinced? I saw how self-defeated me my whole life. Unfortunately, I was calling it me, and so was everyone else, like my probation officer, and everyone else was calling it me. So it was easy to fall into the sense that it's me, but in fact, I'm not that. Yeah. Come on in, gals. Get another chair. Mike, can you get another chair? This is just a warm-up. We'll start with it. All right? So, if you follow the logic, what you're going to do, they say there's a lot of purposes of the fourth step in there, but one of them is to see how self has defeated you. Why? Why would you want to do that? You've been avoiding seeing that most of your life. You want to blame it on Charlie and everything else, but you don't want to see how self defeated you because there's no seeming way out because you think it's you. Yeah. But if you see it as other, then you'll recognize self by its manifestations. Resentments, fears, and harms done to others in the pursuit of what you want. And we look at the sexual behavior because it's a juicy little area of people's lives. Yeah, there's a lot of meaning in there. So we look at those, and it's just the first inventory. We look at resentments being manifestation of self, fear, manifestation of self, acting out, manifestation of self, not yours. Yeah? All right, but people go like this. Well, listen, most of my life, when I saw the effects of this alcoholism, I denied it. Yeah? That was my solution. That didn't work, so I come in AA and I own it finally. I see my role in it. Yes, that works, but there's a third step. I'm not that. Denying doesn't work, because if you deny you're an alcoholic, and you're going to act like one all fucking day. You know what I mean? The denial doesn't work. So there's the mental solution, which is I'm going to deny the facts of I'm an alcoholic. Yeah? And then suddenly you end up in AA, and then there's you own it. All right, I'm going to own the manifestations of self. Not because it wouldn't make sense unless there was the first denying of it. So you have to rebut the denial by owning it, yeah? But then there's a third point where then you see you're not that, yeah? By trying to deny you're not that, you're more of that. But seeing you're not that is the solution, yeah? So most people go, they're in denial, they finally realize they get washed up on the shores of AA, they do an inventory, and what happens is they see their role in things. Maybe just a minuscule little part, but at least they start seeing their role in things, and then possibilities arise, like relief. Yes? Yeah. So there's the denial. All right, let it all land. I am a fucking fraud. I'm an asshole. I did this. I didn't give my mother money when I had money and this and that. Let it all land. And by letting it be as real can be, it's seen, not mentally dealt with, but seen that I'm not that. That resentments are being produced by this parasitical takeover. So my way of seeing has been hijacked. Yeah? I'm seeing threats when there aren't threats. I wasn't seeing it that way when I was 4 years old. Something happened where I started to see threats when there weren't any threats. Yeah? That I start thinking everyone's out to freaking get me, and I better get them first. And all these strategies, which all fail, they're showing up. All right? So this is the point. So, all right, we admit it. Okay? Let it land. And then I'm not that. And this is exactly what's being stated here. it's being stated that being convinced that self, not you, but self manifested in various ways has defeated you. There's the solution. Because what happened when it hit me in a strong way in relationship to AA was I saw that sentence and my head went, you know, that's a fucking foreign installment. The whole idea of self I saw as a real formatted activity that I have nothing freaking to do with, in a sense, yeah? As soon as I saw it that way, it told me another possibility landed immediately, which is I can be free from that. As soon as I saw it as other, the possibility I can be free from something other. I can't be free as it, which that's what I've been trying to do. Every time I shot coke, I wanted to be free as that, yeah? Which is impossible. That's the bondage of self. The bondage of self is both freedom and bondage. You're bonded both ways, yeah? You're bound to it. So I saw it as I'm not that, next possibility I can be free from it. And then it explained to me in a flash, I had been trying to be free as it since I was 6 years old. Everything was explained in no time at all, though it covered a lot of years of seeming living. It just went bam, and I realized self can't get out of self. Yeah? Because that's what I've been attempting to do since I've been 6 years old. Reading science fiction, Edgar Allan Poe, doing this, doing that. I've been trying to get out of me, but I want to be there to enjoy it. So, inevitably, or very clearly, if you get into recovery, it leads you to actually what's prior to it, which is non-duality. Because you realize that it says, like, you manufacture your own misery. No, you don't. So the parasite it uses your factory to manufacture misery, and when it gets sent out, made in Paul, it's stamped, and then you think you own it. So when all the people, hey, I want to return this, you motherfucker, you know, you're just closing shop and you go bankrupt, yeah? But no, you're not manufacturing your own misery. That which you are is being used to manufacture misery. That which you are, which is actually God, is being used by the selfing to play God. It's using your own God juice to fucking play God on you, which is mind-boggling. And the thing is, if you look at the fourth step, right before that page 63, I think it says, you got to quit playing God first. Yeah, and so if you look at the 12 steps as a linear progression, obviously, 12 steps, then the word first would be more important than next, yes? So it says first you got to quit playing God, then next is the big principle of AA, which is turn your will life over to care of higher power. But before that is a more primary point, you got to quit playing God. See, this is the dilemma, because if you're identified as that which is playing God, and it reads, you got to quit playing God, it's going to try to quit playing God, that's playing God. If that which is playing God tries to quit playing God, that's playing God. Self can't get out of self. There you go. You run into that fucking little thumb torture again. And so what happens? You have an incredible contrast in your life. You were totally screwed and now you're not, but there is a subtle bondage of self that goes in both camps. Just like that voice that was talking to you before you got sober, still talking to you after you got sober. It didn't really get interrupted much. It just had to change its like fashion look, basically. It's not shooting up and shit like that. It looks, maybe goes to picnics instead of fucking raves or whatever. Things change, but basically the bondage is just very subtly moved along with you to the solution. What's one to do? It's like a famous Zen statement from a famous, Zen Buddhism. There's a famous Zen statement in a famous piece of Zen called Faith Mind, where he says, you can't use activity, this is one of the translations, You can't use activity to produce stillness. That would be activity. Yes, this is the dilemma. Then another great master, Huang Po, would say, hey, you can't use the Buddha to seek the Buddha. So here we are sitting here, and let's say the exalted Huang Po appeared, aka Paul Hedderman, I wish, would be nice. The exalted Huang Po showed up, and he said to us, not seeing us as us, but as Buddha, he would be talking to Buddha, not you. Though you would think you're the one he's being talked to, but he's actually saying, Buddha, you can't use yourself to find yourself. Simple correction, yeah? And then he goes, you can't use light to seek light. You can't use mind to seek mind. So obviously, why would he say it unless you are mind, light, and Buddha? Yeah, it's trying to talk to the mind, light, and Buddha, hopefully getting through the great defense of what you're not, which is blocking every freaking message. It steals all the mail that's going to the Buddha, and oh, this isn't important, this isn't important. But all it takes is just one time, like here at these talks, some people know me here, so. We don't, first of all, it's not coming from me and it's not being talked to you. It's being thrown over our heads, yeah? Because you can't miss everywhere, first of all. So what's always available at all times isn't going to miss the ball. But you throw a lot of them. Our little technique is because I realize if, let's say we're sitting here and you have a profound moment and everyone stops, the head just does it. What's that thing when they make out of the paper, origami? Makes it into something, and then you sit there, and so he says another one, there is no, and then go and you will see, because the selfing is the act of claiming whatever it's made available to by consciousness. Yeah? Consciousness makes things available to the mental state. The mental state claims that which is available and says, I have a lot to do with a lot of shit I have nothing to do with. So I'm the one that's doing everything. I'm the one who's seeing, thinking, feeling, tasting, touching. It just claims the wazoo out of everything. And therefore because it doesn't have an existence of its own, it's not a self-producing event. It has to be remembered in the past and the future. That's what the thought system is, really. It's a vehicle or a modality of remembering what you're not now, really. Yeah, so you're pictured as a body in the past, you're worried about you as a body in the future. So you're remembered constantly now, in the past and the future. So it goes, I was Paul, I definitely will be Paul. Why the hell would I be worried so much about it? And therefore I am Paul now. It doesn't start with I am Paul. There's I am, but there isn't a Paul. There's I am, which is the onness, and that's self-evident. But see, the selfing is not self-evident. It uses shit by claiming to be evidence of self. That's what it does. So when an action occurs, it uses the action to imply the actor. Yeah? But you can see it. It's right out in front of us completely. It's not like this is, wow, how is this revealed by seeing? You know what I mean? Just seeing it because you're prior to it. Your awareness nothing has ever been aware of it. It's what's aware of everything else. There's nothing that's behind the awareness to be aware of it. There's just awareness, yeah? So all the activities that are going on come after if you look at it as before and after. They're not before awareness, they're after awareness. So you can be seeing from awareness, which I say actually at all times, but you can, here in time, you can be seeing from awareness and you'll see what you're not. You'll see how what's happening is used to imply there's a someone. Yes, there's a someone. And this someone is worthy to be obsessed over because this someone isn't you, but it's me. It's like it's just mind-boggling. And I remember, I tell you, I have seen, when I came into recovery and I sat at my first meetings, The thickness of the shell of terminal uniqueness was unbelievable. I was in my own little oxygen tent. I was breathing the fumes of Paul all day. I didn't believe anyone could feel how I felt. I swear to God, it was unbelievable. I didn't think anyone could think like I thought, or no one had done the heinous things I'd done. So there was I couldn't be touched. It was like the thickest M&M, just a big shell. Nothing could break in, nor could I get out. Yeah, just in this little bondage. So when it started to occur, I'm not 2 levels below coconut. The awareness is still there, untouched and unblemished by all the activity I fucking did. I mean, that's what you're really trying to get out of a lot of the time, is that you are awake by doing the drugs. It's unbearable to you, because what you're aware of is fucking tons of minutia that don't mean anything. Yeah? That same awareness, if it wasn't, aimed at you all day and let to go disperse, it would be enriching. You'd sense a presence. You'd realize all the absurdities of what people take to be so true, which is the idea that I must get into the moment is predicated on an insane idea that you could be out of the moment. I don't believe that's true. Yeah? So suddenly you're totally here, not because you're a heroic fucking super person, it's just you cannot not be. That's all. So, man, it doesn't look like you've been working out to be in the moment. No, because I realize I can't be out of the moment. I mean, completely. So all these absurd, get ready, go, the fucking races got called off. If you want to walk around the oval, it's okay, but you don't have to get the gym shorts early. Just walk around, be put to use, yeah? Be available, you'll sense a presence, and you'll be of service. Yeah? And who's to say how you'll be of service? That's not your pay scale. Just be available, and you'll be used. Yeah. So, to me, there's a beautiful. It's just sort of like you think you're in recovery, and then it may lead you to non-duality, but non-duality is before everything. It's just a fact. So you see, I can't. There's an incredible statement in recovery. It says, because a lot of people believe a lot of the problem is fear. Yes, they do. But really, it's called fear, but it's mental anxieties, really. In other words, we're having a lot of fearful sense that's not responding to an apparent threat. It's mental. Yeah, we're thinking about last week or next week or this or that. What's going to happen to me? I'm sure I'm going to be screwed. So of course, that belief projects into the future, and then you feel it now. Yeah, because you're dreaming. Where was I with that?
You jumped here and there.
Oh, yeah. No. It doesn't matter. The whole point, it really doesn't. The whole point is that which you are cannot be thought about. It cannot be seen. It can't be felt. Can't be tasted. Can't be touched. But it is that which is touching, tasting, feeling. Yes? It's the seeing can't be seen because it's the seeing. Yes? And there's no interruption of it where it would split into an object to be seen, or be only the subject to be the seeing of something. It's just seeing. Yeah? That's the basis of what we are, I feel. And then there's a mental idea that develops, and I would say this place, to me, the best description I've heard of it is dreaming. So just because I have the example of at night when I'm sleeping, you go into dream states, and the dreams seem as real can be, and the only time they don't is when you wake up, usually. If you're in the dreaming, sometimes you can wake up in the dream also, but usually you wake up and then you realize, oh, that wasn't real, and then its effects that seemed as real can be diminished, immediately, because you're not taking it to be true. But then we believe this is real, which is the awake dream. Yeah? And yet we're not going into a hyper type of something else, like sleep or fucking hibernation, where we could see by going to hibernation that this is dreaming. So we believe, oh, I know what dreaming is. It happens at night, but this is dreaming. Yeah? If you look at just your experience, you'll get a clue. Everyone here is at an event, but you're going to make it what it's going to be to you. Yeah? In other words, you're giving, like the Course in Miracles says, you're giving everything all the meaning it has. That's not a topic of discussion. It's an observation. You see that as being so. You observe the fact that there's tons of meaning being given. Yes, so basically you're giving everything all the meaning it has. So in other words, you're also giving meaning to that which you call God, by calling it God, because I would say God would fall under everything and all. So you're giving everything all the meaning it has. So I would say you're God, really, in a sense, dreaming. And so here you are dreaming, and you seem to appear in the dreaming as the dreamt. And this is another way we get caught into the dreaming, because the dreamt here is about the dreaming, and now wants to get out of the dreaming, but as the dreamt. Yeah? The way to get out of the dreaming is not by the dreaming stopping. It's by seeing you're not the dreamt. And then the dreaming continues, and the meaning that you were giving it will lighten up quite a lot. And what will come over, in my experience, what came over me was an acceptance of things just as they are. You know? And then being moved, either attempting to change it, moving away from it, getting closer to it, whatever, but an acknowledgement of what's happening, at least, and then see what happens from there, instead of basically a state of withholding from what's happening, because I don't think it's enough, or it's not the way I want it, it doesn't look like I want it to look like, this and that. Yes, all of these little mechanisms sort of like, well, I'm going to say no, 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 but when the right thing comes along, I'll say a big yes, but no. The habit of saying no will occur. Yeah, so I'm just reporting from the solution about the problem. It's an activity that the solution's entertaining, really. Yeah? There's no illusion that could fool reality unless reality wanted to seem to be fooled by it. There's no freaking way. Like we say in AA, the false evidence appearing real, the acronym for fear. The false evidence appearing real has to appear real to what's real. We're what's real. Yeah? Does next Wednesday appear to be real now? Only in our mind's eye, only in the mental state. Yes? We're dreaming. We're dreaming in time. We're dreaming in places. We're dreaming as things. As Jesus says, we're in this world, but we're not of this world. You're not going to find the of here. You're going to bring the of to this place. You're not going to find it in this place unless you have the eyes to see it. And those eyes to see it are not the eyes to see this world. They're that eye that is awareness, yeah? Then you'll recognize the of and the in. So non-duality just gets to this point in my take on it, which is there's a habit of looking for what we are from what we're not, yeah? And then there's the possibility of seeing the looking for what you are from what you're not from what you are. Instead of seeing, which isn't seeing what you are, it's just conceptualizing, but instead of trying to find what you are by what you're not, you see what you're not from what you are, and that's the end of it. And the beginning of it, yeah? So there's like a switcheroo. Right now, the emphasis is on what we're not, to the point that we start looking for what we are from what we're not, with the hopes that what we're not will get it, yeah? there's an emphasis. At the same moment, you can easily see it as, I'm now seeing the mental state looking for what I am from what I'm not, from what I am. I can see it, yeah. And what happens when you see it? There's an intimation of what you are as the seeing by seeing what you're not. It intimates what you are finally, because you can't see what you are, but it can be intimated to you or as you by seeing what you're not. That's the only way I can say it. That's how it's worked with me. Yeah? It's by seeing what I'm not, I get a sense of what I am, which is the seeing of what I'm not. Yeah? Because that's all I can see here, is what I'm not. So. And here, as the action figure, it allows a traveling lighter to stabilize. Or it really allows that Rule 62 in AA, not taking yourself so seriously, to be intimately available. Yeah? Because if self tries to take itself not too seriously, that's a lot of seriousness. Man. And if they, the one thing I wanted to say from the book was when they talk about the fear, there's a statement in the big book where they ask us, I'm paraphrasing a little but pretty close, why are we in so much fear today? And he doesn't let us answer, which is good. Yeah, and then he goes, isn't it because self-reliance has failed us? Okay? So that's an incredible statement. But what does it look like? What does self-reliance look like? So, reliance is depending on something, yes? So let's say I'm depending on self. And the dependence on self as a mental activity has gone to such an extreme, I'm identified as it. Yeah? Which is way beyond obsession, yeah? It's the obsession that says it's having all the other obsessions. That's how fucking gone it is, yeah? It's like when I did cocaine, and I did tons of cocaine, I never thought once that I was cocaine. I never saw myself in a bindle or anything like that. But we're starting from the assumption of being what we're not. We're starting there. That's amazing. It has gone so far, we don't know it's gone anywhere. It's the new norm. It is. And then, because of that, that provokes a lot of looking for ease and comfort, and so all the other addictions really are a call to arms about this original discomfort, which is being bonded to this idea of being a someone, yeah, and constantly being thought about and remembered and everything. Yeah? So I shoot coke to get out of myself, but what happens is it reinforces it every time. So the more I try to get out, the more I'm in. Yeah? And I'll take it to a great length with the hopes it's going to switch, but it never did. To the point of dying. A number of times, I took it to the extreme. I know I can break out of this motherfucker. Well, you can't break out of an imaginary place. It's impossible. I've tried. I have. I believed I could transcend if I brought my body to the point of death and was still awake, which I did many, many times on big shots of cocaine, that there would be an event there, that something would snap. Yeah, and that format I felt so enclosed by would break. And I'm here to tell you it didn't work. Therefore, I sort of transposed that failure onto every other way people are trying to get out of self as self, with the expectation it's probably going to fail. Now, I don't have to do as much as I did in coke addiction and spirituality to know it fails, because I did enough. And it was sort of like pulling the emergency brake and letting me get off the bus. Because I heard from people who were on the bus a lot longer than me saying nothing really has happened. I fucking let me off the bus because I've been down that road with shooting coke. I don't need to go down to the end of the line. Yeah, I'll just get off here and see what happens. You know what I mean? And this is what's happening. Yeah. It's just really get off. Yeah. And see if it's true that you are what you're looking for. Yeah. Or if St. Francis, if you really respect that dude, he had a great one, which is, what's looking is what you're looking for. Wouldn't that stop all the looking for? If what's looking is what you're looking for, then bingo, you found it. When? Now? Where? Here? Because, like it or not, you're looking. You're aware. Yes? Without any effort, is there? Are you trying to be aware? Most of the day we're trying not to be aware, really. We're really going the other way. I'm fucking tired of this light being on all the time. Can you fucking dim it down? But it's usually not that. The light is beautiful, but when you're getting the reflection off of objects all day, it blinds you. When that light of awareness keeps bouncing off of thoughts about you and claiming, it blinds you. It's fucking unbearable in a way. Yeah? But if that awareness could lift and then become dispersed, it's all that you've ever sought for. Yeah? But in the addiction, it's the last thing we want to become more of is aware. Really. So yeah, any questions? If you follow it, just look at it. Just look at the word self. Look at the dictionary. Usually they have like 120 attributes. It's usually self with a hyphen, and then it has like 100. Maybe they have more by now. I haven't looked at it in 20-some years. But then they had like 140, and so I weighed like pro and con, like expansive, contractive. I weighed all the things. Some of them were like self-love, but most of them were like self-immolation, burning yourself to death, or self-fucking-hatred. So, and I figured when I did the columns, it was like about 90 on the self-hatred side and maybe 20 on the expansive side. That's a bad bargain, bro. I mean, the game is rigged. You're not going to win. So, yeah.
So I was wondering, so I have, I'm the only one who's sober in my family, and I get into a lot of arguments with my younger sister. She does not like the sober me, and it gets really it gets pretty heated, and I will hang up the phone and I'll believe, there's a part of me that believes that it's true, like what she says about me, is holding it and believing that it's true, and I fucking can't shake it.
Well, ask who is it that wants to shake it, and see you're not that.
Absolutely, and then I'll do that, and I can't see how I can get away from it without being really
painful. Well, ask who is it that can't see, because the selfing will arise, and it will take many, many appearances, but it's dependent on one little stage that is after you. You will see its performance, and it's begging you to give it what? Attention and interest. And then suddenly you see everything from there. Yeah, even though the seeing is not up there. The seeing is from here. Yeah, yeah. That's what happens. People first is the consequential level, and let's say in recovery, so something lifts, so you start seeing, wow, my wrong things, and wow, that's why this happened, you know, and if I do the same thing, expecting different results, that's insanity, all of that, yeah? So there's a thing, and then there's a narration of this new view, but it's the same disease, just taking it was appearing here, critiquing you here. Now that you've moved, the aperture's opened up, it's now running around this thing, critiquing you from here, yeah? And hopefully something will happen and you'll see farther, and then it will just arise and very, very cunningly start talking as if it's you about, oh, this new awareness, ooh, I'm getting clearer than I ever thought. Oh, I need to start helping others because they're not clear as me, and or whatever. And so there'll be this claiming, yes? And then every time you recognize it, yeah, it will regroup and then try to say, I'm the one who recognizes it. So self will see self quite a lot in the way of hiding or shielding itself here. It will be, oh yeah, it's like Dracula going out on a vampire hunt. He'll kill all the vampires, but no one questions, hey, you're fucking Dracula. You know what I mean? No, I'm busy killing vampires. So, yeah, just let it, of course, because there is that part of you is holding on, yeah. And of course, usually the biggest triggers are families. Yeah, and so like in recovery, we say you got to practice these principles in all your affairs, and if you realize you can't, then limit your affairs. Don't have as much contact with them until you get a little stronger. Yes, that's the whole thing of the we. You're outmatched right now. We all are, but we're outmatched, and you need to take the sanctuary of the we and of that idea of the higher power, which is, I think, is just us being projected. So it's like that which does not need to be saved plays out this pantomime of being saved by itself as something else. You know, we call it the higher power, but in fact, I believe we're already that, yes? Yeah, so. It doesn't matter what it says, it wants to compel an action, because that's how it tattoos you. Yeah, like if I'm with somebody for 8 years and maybe 50 times I thought I hate this person, but I've never said it, you know, it doesn't leave much of a mark, yes? But that one time I blurted out, I may forget it in an hour, but she doesn't, and nor does all her friends that she's called, and now she remembers, you fucking said you hated me for years, yeah? The thought system wants to compel an action. It wants to make a splash out here. It gets relevance by producing an effect. Right now, it's just seemingly driving you crazy, but it wants to get out there, yes? So the whole point is, really, the whole point is that pause, yes? Do not, as soon as you lend your juice to it, it's going to spray it all over you. Like projectile vomiting. Really, I've watched it tons of times in myself and others, yes? So, and you're not that. What does he talk about? They talk all about the spirit. You are the spirit, yeah? How could you not be? How could the spirit look for itself as itself? It would have to be identified as a thing to look for itself as no thing. But all the while, the thing is no thing looking for itself. Yeah? So you just recognize what you're not, and you'll find out what you are. Yeah? Yeah. And AA, see, if your action figure, my action figure veered off the road and usually took a few cars with it all the time. So in this life, I had to be corrected as a physicality. There was no philosophy that was going to work. I needed a way of life to sort of correct the blatant failedness of the system, the GPS I was following, yes? And that's what AA is for me. It's a way of life. But what illuminates the way of life is non-duality. That's the fact. We are what we're looking for. You're not going to become what you are. You're going to see what you're not. And what you're not can drop off, just like the skin of the snake gets molted. The shit that's calling itself the snake is just mental skin. It will shake off. And you'll travel lighter. Yeah. Let's go eat, eh? I'm hungry as hell today. Ed, you all right? Come back, and got tons of, if you look up Dover or Brooklyn, they're all AA talks I've done. This, and then there's the non-duality stuff. I didn't do them, but, yeah. See, in AA, I want to be helpful. See, I want to be helpful to you. In non-duality, I don't want to be fucking helpful to you. I don't. Really, I don't. But AA, yeah, I have a little softness about that. Yeah. All right, so let's pass the mask.